Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for getting up an extra hour early to be here with us, online or in person. It's wonderful to see some actual wide awake, fully dressed people here, hair combed. I don't know if your teeth are brushed, but you're looking good. So, good morning. I'm Laurel Whitehouse, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm a member of the parish committee. We're glad you're here, as I said. A special welcome to any visitors we might have or folks who are newer to attending our worship services. We invite you downstairs after the service for some community time, and Kate Holland, our Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration, or on other Sundays, Reverend Deborah will be happy to answer any questions you might have. And there'll be someone at the membership table to also answer questions and give you some more information. And we are fortunate this morning to have Reverend Laura Randall join us in the pulpit. As the Director for Congregation Relations at UUSC, Reverend Laura Randall, pronouns she, her, hers, facilitates partnerships to strengthen the impact of the UU Service Committee, the social justice reach of UU communities. Prior to joining UUSC, Laura's ministry included serving as the Legacy Campaign Director for the Unitarian Universalist Association and Hospice Chaplaincy. She lives in Medford, Massachusetts with her spouse and their 2 dogs. A big thank you to all the service participants whose names are in the order of service. And we have some last-minute volunteers because illness is rampant, apparently. So the Kenny Chapman family is under the weather. Larry Green and his wife are in quarantine for COVID. And Julia Kenny, their family also has some woes. So you'll see some different faces up here this morning. So let's take a moment to say hello to one another and to our folks who are online. This week, we have a special announcement from Lynn Trimby for the auction team.
Good morning. It looks like all of you remembered to set your clocks ahead, and I hope you also remembered that our online auction is live and open for bidding. There are over 40 items to choose from. Excuse me. From vacation homes to dinners to concerts, plays, and for the adventurous, rock climbing. So there is something for everyone. Activities start as low as $15. And the online auction closes a week from Friday, March 21st at 7 o'clock. So don't wait, or some of your favorite items may be sold out. That happened to me last year, so I'm warning you. While you're on the auction site, you can also preview the items that are going to be in the silent auction and the live auction and also the raffle. All of those items will be auctioned at our party, Mediterranean Madness, Mediterranean Magic. Magic, not madness. It's the lack of sleep, what can I say? Anyway, the auction party will be Saturday, March 23rd at 6:30. So mark your calendars. We will have delicious food, wine, entertainment, music, and of course, lots of fun. David O'Leary, auctioneer extraordinaire, will be on hand to orchestrate the evening. Deb Stabita, a member of our auction team back there, is going to be selling raffle tickets after the service today down in the vestry. And who knows, you might get lucky, like I did last year, and win an original John Thompson print for the price of a raffle ticket. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to bid high and bid often and come to the party on March 23rd. Thanks.
And now let's start to center ourselves for worship by taking a breath and releasing, and breathe in peace and breathe out love. We'll turn our hearts and minds to worship as the Levine family lights our chalice this morning.
With open minds and loving hearts, we gather to search for meaning, to care for one another, and to work together for a better world.
Thank you, choir. Good morning. Our opening words are by the Reverend Sarah Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 151, I Wish I Knew How. Please be seated.
So you're missing a treat. Larry Green was going to do a testimonial this morning about the many ways that First Parish in Wayland matters to him. And I'm sorry he won't be able to deliver that. Maybe we can squeeze it in next week. This is our second week of stewardship season here as we think about sustaining the future and the works of this congregation. Our theme this week is the talents that we all share. Last week it was the time. So just think about the talent we've already experienced this morning with the beautiful music of Polly, with the choir's voices, with people sharing their plans for an auction, either of madness or magic, whichever, and all the other wonderful things going on, the Seek program, someone's downstairs scurrying around making us coffee. And so in celebration of that, we're going to give out a couple more prizes. These prizes are for people who have volunteered last year, because we're not done with our whole pledging season. So first, I want to recognize someone whose talent is extraordinary, who dragged himself here last week to do a testimonial with me, even though he had a double earache. And so for my cohort, there might be bacon. Thank you, Luca. And would you choose? Reverend Laura's going to choose a name for this week's two prizes. Okay. This is a fair and equitable process. Celebrating our gifts, congratulations to Rita Anderson and Suzanne Woodruff, who have gifted our worship services repeatedly this year with gorgeous floral arrangements on those Sundays when no one was signed up to provide flowers. So thank you both. And I will deliver your swag as the service terminates.
I was not expecting a bag of bacon to come out of a gift bag. It was really good. Good morning again. I have a story for all ages for you, and it starts with a question. So, folks of all ages, what is something that happens every time Unitarian Universalists come together on Sunday mornings? Coffee, yes. That is one. Anything else? Questions, also very good. A chalice, yes. The chalice is very important to Unitarian Universalists. Every time UUs gather together, no matter where we are, we light a chalice. And it's fun to think about how people all over the country and even the world might be lighting a chalice right now or very soon for now as this very early Sunday morning makes its way across the land. So today, I want to tell you more about the symbol of the chalice and the story of how the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee began. It all started over 80 years ago when Unitarians in the United States were watching what was happening in Europe, and they were getting very worried. They were worried because a man named Hitler and the people he was leading, called the Nazis, were becoming very powerful and hurting a lot of people. So some of you might know this. The Nazis believed some pretty wrong things, right? They believed that the only people who were any good were people who were just like them. They wanted everyone to be the same as they were, and if you weren't, they might kick you out of your house. They would take all of your things. They wouldn't let you work. And eventually, they started killing a lot of people who were different from them, Jewish people, gay people, people with disabilities. All of them were targets of the Nazis during this time, and it was very scary. So if you saw something like this happening, would you want to help? Yeah? And would the people in this congregation, would they want to help too? Yeah, absolutely. It was the same back then. Unitarians wanted to help people in Europe who were being targeted by the Nazis. So a Unitarian minister and his wife from Wellesley, Massachusetts, Waitstill and Martha Sharp, went to Europe to see how they could help the people there. And they found lots of ways they could help when they got there, but they had to get creative because the Nazis were always watching, and it would be very dangerous if they got caught. The Sharps helped get paperwork to people who needed to escape to safer places. They would even dress people in disguises and wear disguises themselves to get past the guards. And they helped a lot of people, including a lot of kids, get food and clothing at a time when it was very hard to find both. So the Sharps, they were very brave, right? But they didn't do this work alone. They worked with people in the Jewish communities in Europe. They worked with other Unitarians, both in Europe and the United States, who sent them money and other supplies so that more people could be helped. And this is how the Unitarian Service Committee, now called UUSC, got started. And this is where the flaming chalice comes in. Many of the people in the Unitarian Service Committee many of the people they were helping in Europe at the time didn't have the papers that they needed in order to travel to safer countries. So UUSC decided they would just make their own papers for these people. And the most important thing, though, was that these papers needed to look official. And so they needed a seal to make them look official. So the Reverend Charles Joy asked an Austrian artist named Hans Dusch to create an official seal for these papers the Unitarian Service Committee was printing. Hans created the flaming chalice as this symbol. It was printed on all of these documents that were used to get people to safety. So our chalice, the thing that binds all Unitarian Universalists together, was founded on our commitment to human rights. Today, UUSC still works around the world to help people who are being treated badly find safety and have their human rights respected. We work with migrant communities who have fled their homes and are seeking asylum in the United States. We work with Rohingya Muslims from Burma who are facing inhumane treatment and displacement by their government. We work with people around the world whose home communities are being threatened by climate change, and so many more. Both 85 years ago and today, Unitarian Universalists come together through the UU Service Committee to work with the people who need it most. And we'll continue to be there to help when future Unitarian Universalists are doing the same thing, because we believe in making the world a better place for everyone. So thank you for all the ways that you join us in doing this work. We couldn't do it without everyone joining together. We're so grateful for you. And I thank you for listening to this story. Let us now sing our children to their Seek programming.
Good morning, I'm Debbie Levens, a lay minister for this congregation. This is the time in our service that we set aside to acknowledge all the joys and sorrows that we hold. In our sharing and in our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. Each Sunday, we light a vigil candle, and Reverend Laura will light it, in recognition of the pain and the suffering being experienced around the world due to ongoing war and violence. May this small act help unite us in our prayer for the end of all suffering. If you have a personal joy or sorrow that you would like to share, please come forward now or raise your hand and I can bring you the microphone. And if you're online, Reverend Laura will light a final candle for all those joys and sorrows not spoken. May we hold in our hearts those who have spoken, those they've named, and those we hold in silence. May it be so.
Take a breath with me. We know there's so much pain and destruction in the world right now, and our hearts are with all of those many suffering beyond what we can imagine. And we know that pain and joy are woven finely together in this life. We lift up the celebrations that we do have when we can come together with those we love. Celebration of another year on this beautiful, hurting world of ours. For this, for all the joys, for all the pains that we hold together and in community, let us have a moment of silence. Blessed be. Amen. Our reading this morning is a poem by the Reverend Julian Yumeka Soto. It is a poem called "To the People Who Have Mistaken Freedom for Liberation." They write, "To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your own existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know, not that you can do whatever you want. You are not a kudzu vine, eating entire hillsides for the purpose of feeding your own lush life. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. But to be actually free, you must know and you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise." There ends our reading. As a staff member of UUSC, one of the great privileges of my work is traveling to UU congregations to thank UUSC members in person. To all the members of First Parish who are also members of UUSC, through your financial support, thank you so much. We truly could not do the mission of advancing human rights and resisting systems of oppression without you. For those of you who are not yet members or have not given a gift in a long time, I hope you will consider renewing your membership today. A gift of any amount makes you a member. About 25 First Parish members are also currently members of UUSC. Before COVID, First Parish boasted more than 70 members. Yeah, I bet we could get back there. If you make a gift to UUSC during the offering today, and you would like that gift to count you as a new member of UUSC, please let me know during coffee hour. I'll have a sign-up sheet where I can get your information downstairs. And those of you online, you're welcome to go to uusc.org to make that gift and become a member. Thank you. So UUSC, known as its founding as the Unitarian Service Committee, has always depended on the generosity and vision of UU congregations. And in a very tangible way, the values of the UU Service Committee are at the center of our congregations. I'll say more about that, but you heard a spoiler during my Time for All Ages. We share a vibrant and living faith, one that brings together a beautiful motley crew of people who are drawn together, not because we all believe the same thing, but because we long for a world in which everyone belongs. Everyone is free to live lives of peace and contentment. We share a commitment to always be learning about and celebrating the incredible diversity of the human family. More than 100 years ago, Louis Fisher, who was dean of the Rider Divinity School in Chicago, famously said, "Universalists are often asked to tell where they stand. The only true answer to give is, we do not stand at all, we move." If you travel around the country visiting UU congregations, as I have the unique privilege of doing, you will notice that each UU congregation is special. The elements of the service, the configuration of the sanctuary, the particular vibe of the community, all different everywhere you go. However, there's one thing that solidly connects all UUs. In every single congregation, there is a chalice, and that chalice is lit at the beginning of worship. As I shared during the Time for All Ages today, it is the chalice itself, the very thing that binds all UUs together, that most strongly calls us to the work of resisting oppressive systems such as racism, sexism, and fascism, promoting human rights for all people, and caring for the precious earth we share. Our chalice, sacred as it is to us, wasn't always the symbol of the Unitarian and Universalist faiths. In 1940, Reverend Charles Ryn Joy was sent by the newly created Unitarian Service Committee to Lisbon, Portugal, which was the only port in Europe open at the time, and therefore was the port that most refugees were fleeing the Nazi regime. Many of these refugees had to flee without any of their belongings, including the identification papers they needed to cross borders. So Joy decided to start making those papers himself. This was uncharted water, but instead of focusing on the risks that he and the organization were taking by doing this, he focused instead on the lives he was saving, those lives that were fleeing fascism. And since he decided these papers needed to look as official as other travel papers, they needed a seal, so we asked that Austrian refugee and artist working in Lisbon, hand-dushed, to create one, and the result is the basis of the Flaming Chalice as we know it now. While all this was happening, Waite Still and Martha Sharp were also in Europe, also falsifying documents, and also laundering money when necessary. Amazing stuff. It's time for another sermon. So you see, this thing that binds all of us together, the chalice, was founded our commitment to human rights, to fighting fascism. Since the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, we've been committed to supporting the work of liberation, even when, maybe especially when, it involves making holy trouble for the powers that would deny anyone their full humanity. In the poem I read by Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto, Reverend Soto tells us that liberation is the kind of freedom that celebrates the utterly unique and precious life embodied in you and honors the utterly unique and precious life embodied in each and every other person. But to be actually free, Reverend Soto writes, you must know that you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise. And it's this promise I want to talk about today, because this promise of liberation is being threatened in so many parts of the world by the threat of fascism. In the 2023 Berry Street essay, Reverend Cecilia Kingman describes the 10 tactics of fascism from the work of Jason Stanley, including the targeting of already vulnerable populations, such as migrants, queer and trans people, and disabled people, as part of creating an enemy, which an authoritarian leader can then target and punish. We often say that we live in difficult times, so let's delve a little deeper into that question. What times are we in right now? Those familiar with the tactics of fascism, tactics that include things like glorification of a mythic past, the reliance on unfounded fear to institute restrictive law and order, and the supremacy of white, male, and able-bodied hierarchy can recognize that these forces are hard at work around the world and in the United States. Reverend Kingman frames the answer to what times are we in now this way. We all know that we are in a moment of grave danger. If anyone is left wondering how bad it is very, very bad. It's alarmingly easy, however, for us to grow acclimated and numb unless we pay rigorous attention to the strategies and timelines used by fascists. Will you take a deep breath with me? This is hard stuff. So what will our response be, friends? How can we resist these forces? How can we use the power of imagination to imagine action that can lead to different and better futures? UUSC's grassroots partners are imagining better futures and working for them with all their might in pursuit of liberation. Getting to know the stories of the partners we highlight during the Guest at Your Table program each year offers us a chance to extend hospitality in a way we don't often consider. It's an opportunity to open our hearts, to reach beyond ourselves, to marshal our resources, to be free to love and share, and together create new possibilities. So let's meet some of these partners, shall we? The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee partners with Foundation for Justice and Democratic Rule of Law, or FJED, in Mexico City, for the express purpose of supporting human rights and democracy, which includes accompanying individuals, communities, and families who have been impacted by human rights violations. FJED's executive director, Ana Lorena Delegado, says of their mission, "We want to combat regional agreements that violate the rights of people to migrate, that violate the rights of people to request asylum, that violate the rights of migrants to live without violence, and that violate the rights of migrants to achieve justice and reparations." To that end, FJED labors extensively to search for disappeared migrants, which includes defending cases and following up on human rights violations. Anna states that in this work, UUSC has felt like a family. We feel less alone, and we feel strengthened by your presence. You, my friends, through your support of UUSC, are part of this family, part of this strength. This family of support extends to our trans and queer beloveds in the world and in the United States as well. This is a crucial issue for Unitarian Universalists confronting fascism and for all lovers of human rights. The United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner makes it plain that gender expression of trans people is part of their human rights with these words. At the root of acts of violence and discrimination, including lack of access to gender recognition by the state and violence in healthcare settings, lies the intent to punish based on preconceived notions of what a victim's gender identity should be, with a binary understanding of what constitutes a male and a female, or the masculine or the feminine. These acts are invariably the manifestations of deeply entrenched stigma and prejudice, irrational hatred, and a form of gender-based violence, driven by an intention to punish those who are seen as defying gender norms. One of the many ways UUSC is acting in solidarity with our trans kin is partnering with QueersVit. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, more than 62,000 people have died. Nearly 60,000 have been injured, and roughly 14 million have been displaced. What follows is that racism, homophobia, and trans antagonism impact which evacuees receive help escaping danger. So two Black non-binary people came together to found QueersVit. Their aim is to assist BIPOC and LGBTQ+ people impacted by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. QueersVit provides evacuation, temporary housing, and relocation support, along with legal support and physical and mental health resources. QueersVit's founder, Anna Maria Tesfaye, says that they are working for a world in which there is no homophobia, transphobia, racism, or sexism. About the partnership between QueersVit and UUSC, Anna Maria says, UUSC took a chance on us and recognized the potential for our work. Our partnership with UUSC has been transformative. Our organization is now sustainable, allowing us to continue our mission, which is to empower marginalized communities by providing opportunities to voice their concerns and their needs. The mission of the National TPS Alliance is much the same. TPS here stands for Temporary Protected Status, which is an immigration status granted to some people who come from countries where they are unable to return safely due to conditions like armed conflict or environmental disaster. The benefits of TPS include protection from being deported or removed from the United States, legal authorization to work, and authorization to travel. All of these things demonstrate the value of human lives, even lives in migration. Reverend Kingman explains that fascist propaganda makes a distinction between friends and enemies. It casts the other as a threat and presents the idea that these others are fundamentally opposed to the nation. We hear many fascists now vilifying migrants and asylum seekers as these others who are a threat to our nation. In this way, the Trump administration moved to radically scale back the TPS program and cancel TPS for hundreds of thousands of immigrants. In some cases, parents who held the suddenly revoked TPS status had to face the devastating choice of leaving their US citizen children behind with friends or relatives, or taking them back to a dangerous country their children had never known. The TPS Alliance works to change that by restoring TPS protections and securing a path to permanent residency for all TPS holders. Lydia Palma, national coordinator of the TPS Alliance, says that they are pursuing liberation by building collective power among TPS holders to fight harder to achieve social justice for immigrant populations. Speaking out about our partnership, Lydia says, our connection with UUSC has been very special and an important collaboration. All of UUSC's partners are engaged in powerful acts of resistance to forces that would deny people their full humanity. We at UUSC, and by extension, all of us gathered here, are committed to these acts of resistance as well. Just as our spiritual ancestors were at the founding of UUSC, when the image of the flaming chalice was created to symbolize courage, resilience, defiance, and yes, joy. One aspect of resistance that is sometimes overlooked as frivolous when it is actually critical is joy. In a society where joy is often commercialized or performative, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on what actually brings joy to your life. Theologian Frederick Buechner says that you will find your calling where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. As another winter draws to a close and we find renewed possibilities of spring before us, may we encounter joy in the beauty and the delight of being of service. May we cultivate joy by embodying our dearest values, a beautiful feast at a bountiful table. Let us close by reflecting on the possibilities offered by Robert F. Kennedy in Prayer for Our Country. He said, "Let no one be discouraged by the belief that there is nothing one person can do against the enormous array of the world's ills, misery, ignorance, and violence. Few will have the greatness to bend history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all these acts will be written the history of a generation. It is from numberless, diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time people stand up for an ideal or act to improve the lot of others or strike out against injustice, they send a tiny ripple of hope. Crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples can build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression. So may we live. Blessed be, and amen." Let us take a moment to reflect upon these words.
Today, we will be sharing our plate with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. As Reverend Laura has said, UUSC is an international human rights organization grounded in Unitarian Universalist values and founded in response to the rise of fascism. Since their founding, they have continued to support people facing humanitarian crises and displacement from their homes due to natural disaster, political violence, genocide, severe climate change impacts, and more. UUSC's work is based on a partnership model that centers the experience and leadership of the people who are most impacted by injustice. This partnership includes support of some of the most creative and courageous groups of people you can imagine who are working for justice, often under very dangerous conditions. Like most UU institutions, they carry forward this bold work with a modest budget. Their work with grassroots partners has proven to be a very effective way to make a tangible difference in places where people are often left behind by larger, more bureaucratic organizations. UUSC has the highest rating from Charity Navigator for their financial health, transparency, and accountability practices. They can do all that they do Because people like us, people of faith and conscience, make it possible with financial support. Our support ensures that in these chaotic times, with threats to human rights expanding in many arenas, UUSC's response too can expand. UUSC is a membership organization that receives no funding from the UUA. It is our donations that make the UUSC's work possible. Information on how to give can be found in your order of service on your screen or by going to uusc.org. Gifts of $150 or more from individuals are eligible to be matched dollar for dollar by the UU congregation at Shelter Rock. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Thank you all for your generosity. Will you please join me in saying the extinguishing the chalice words found in your order of service? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let us rise once more in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. It's number 323, Break Not the Circle, 323 in your gray hymnal. Friends, may we recognize the divine when it appears on our thresholds and gladly offer a place at our tables. May we look to join with all justice seekers, offering welcome, hospitality, and solidarity. Liberation is not the freedom of a few, but the joyful realization of possibility for all. Blessed be, and amen.